Welcome to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Community Development and Regulatory Services Committee for today, which is September 29th. I've been joined by council members Cano, Quincy, Fry, Reich, and Morsami, which is everyone on our committee. We have a very brief agenda today. I'll move the consent agenda, which are items 6, 7, and 8. They include our license and consumer services agenda, as well as a settlement conference recommendation and a rental license dwelling reinstatement. Are there any items of those three anyone would like to pull for discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Those items are approved. We'll move on to our land sale public hearings, starting with item number 1, which is the sale at 628 Franklin Avenue East, often referred to as the Pigeon Building. Ms. Shoquist, welcome.
Good afternoon, Chair Goodman, members of the committee. I am before you today requesting your approval of the land sale at 628 Franklin Avenue East to the developer Mark Orfield. He proposes to build 14 units, including 3 one-bedroom units at 715 square feet for a proposed rent of $790, and 11 two-bedroom units at 860 to 925 square feet at a proposed rent of $1,200 per month. This is the third time that I personally as staff have issued a request for proposals for this particular property. I'm sure many of you have much more of a longer history of the development adventures of this building. As you can see from the photo, it is a beautiful facade with a very charming neighborhood presence. It is, however, inside completely gutted, and so we are very excited that we have a feasible and community building proposal to bring forward to you today. We did receive 3 other proposals that were also quality proposals. What differentiated this one to staff is that we have requested the highest value of market rate housing or commercial development for this property. This particular proposal came in at the highest value, not only in the highest amount of development costs invested in the building, but also the highest estimated market value on completion of the property. This developer also had the strongest financial commitment at that highest value. Another issue that is not a zoning issue, but is a living issue, is that there are not very many parking places associated with this building on the property. The benefit is that this developer, Mark Orfield, owns and manages properties across the street and is able to make additional parking available to these residents. And the last 2 comments is that the Ventura Village neighborhood organization supports this proposal and has had a long-standing good relationship with this developer and property manager in their neighborhood. And we also have the support of Councilmember Warsame. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions for Ms. Shoquist on item number 1? Seeing none, thank you for your report. We'll open the public hearing on item number 1, which is a land sale at 628 Franklin Avenue East. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Warsame.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'll be happily move approval of this item.
Item number 1 has been moved for approval. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move on to item number 2. Roxanne, welcome.
Hi. Chair Goodman, members of the committee. Before you is a request to adopt a resolution approving the sale of 2046 James Avenue North to Forward Home and Design, LLC, for $1. This property was constructed in 1911. It's a 1,061 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1-bath, single-family home that Forward Home LLC is proposing to rehab for home ownership. There were 2 other proposals that were received for this property, Urban Homeworks and Wilson Molina. Urban Homeworks LLC's proposal was effectively, we're recommending Forward Home LLC because they are not requesting subsidy, which Urban Homeworks was requesting, and because we felt that their rehab standards were slightly more effective than Wilson Molina, who we will be bringing forward for 8 proposals in the near future. Are there any questions?
Are there any questions for staff on item number 2? I'll just say I am ecstatic that you're going to be working with Robin on this project. I think she's really proven that she could do some great things in the community, and there's a lot of community support for her work. This is a public hearing on item number 2, which is a land sale at 2046 James Avenue North. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and move approval. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll then move on to item number 3. Welcome back.
Before you is adoption of a resolution for a land sale for 2101 26th Avenue North to Homes Minnesota LLC. This would be the first property that Homes Minnesota LLC is purchasing from CPED. 2101 26th Avenue North was constructed in 1911. It's a 1,075 square foot, 3-bedroom, 1-bath home that the proposer is intending to rehab for owner occupancy. We did a thorough review of Homes Minnesota LLC's history, and we feel that this developer is going to be a strong one for this property. The Jordan neighborhood was notified of the staff recommendation, and they also approve of the staff recommendation of sale to Homes Minnesota LLC.
Are there any questions for staff on item number 3? Seeing none, thank you for your report. We'll open up the public hearing on item number 3, which is a land sale of 2101 26th Avenue North. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to move approval of this item.
Approval of item number 3 has been moved. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll then move on to item number 4. I don't believe we're going to take a staff report on item number 4. The motion is to delete it from the agenda. Do we need to have a public hearing on item number 4? Okay, this is a public hearing on withdrawing or deleting from the agenda due to the withdrawal of the offer, the property at 3115 Knox Avenue North. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue today? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and move to delete from the agenda due to the withdrawal of the offer. Further comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move on then to our licensing agenda. Mr. Wilson on item number 5.
Madam Chair, we have an application by an existing restaurant at 3400 Nicollet Avenue South called Brahman Kazama. They currently have a regular restaurant license, and they would like to upgrade their license to include the sale of wine and strong beer, entertainment level Class E. This will be a charter wine because they don't have 7 acres of commercial zoning in that node. They received a parking variance to reduce the parking requirement to 0. They do have seating for 46 persons inside with no outdoor seating at this time. They're open till 11 p.m. in the evening, Tuesday to Thursday, and until midnight, Friday to Sunday. This is a full-service restaurant that serves ramen menu items. Because this is the first time this site has ever had an alcohol license, a public hearing is required. We did a mailing to all residents and property owners within 600 feet, and we notified the Lindale Neighborhood Group and the Lindale Neighborhood Business Association. We did receive 7 responses from that notification process. 5 support the application and 2 were opposed. The 2 opposed comments were that they would wish that the restaurant had more off-street parking. Staff has reviewed their application. They seem to meet all of our requirements, and the staff's recommendation is to approve.
Are there any questions for Mr. Wilson on item number 5? Seeing none, we'll open the public hearing on item number 5, which is a new business license at 3400 Nicollet Avenue. Is there anyone here to speak to this issue? Anyone? Anyone? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Councilmember Fry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move approval of this item.
Approval of item number 5 has been moved. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is approved. We'll move on to our last remaining item. Ms. Jones, welcome. We did receive a printed report. You do not need to review the printed report.
I will not. I'll just quickly update you. We do have a presentation though, so that has some slides. Is that appropriate?
Is it this?
Yes.
Perhaps just, we don't need a lecture about what they are. We
Okay.
just need to hear about results.
I'd be happy to go right to
I mean,
results.
this is what is Homeline. I mean, this is like, training to be a council member 101. So
Okay.
let's not spend a lot of time on that.
Tara Goodman, I would be happy to oblige. And I am going to invite Eric Hauge, Eric, to the podium with me to help discuss the statistics. So as you indicated, council members, we have a contract with Homeline, and I'm going to go right to, to the statistics that, and so this is our mid-year report. So the first 6 months of the year, you can see that we served almost 1,600 Minneapolis renter households, and 89% of them were contacted via phone or in person, and 11% via email. This was part of our contract with Homeline. We did want to be able to drill down into the data to find out how people are reaching out, and specifically how often and what was the makeup, and how long they were spending with each client as well, to see if if we can learn lessons from their data. We have successfully spent a lot of time with Homeline reviewing data, so we feel fairly confident that we have a good understanding of what's going on. So again, Homeline helped renters recover or approximately $200,000 in damage and deposits and rent abatements, and they were successful in preventing evictions. This is a lot to do with them spending time with clients on the phone, trying to get a deeper understanding of what's going on and providing advice, legal advice. Interesting factor with Homeline is that they do provide a lot of service to Spanish-speaking and Somali-speaking members of our community. They do have legal staff who are fluent in those languages to provide, again, accurate services.
So can you explain to me how we can quantify $192,034 recovered or estimated? How do they estimate
Yes, if you, Council Goodman, Member Goodman, Eric, will you please describe that? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Goodman. Is that one working over here? These statistics are based on the last slide as far as recovering damage deposits and rent abatements as well as evictions. It's based on a research study that a PhD student in statistics at the U of M did with calls that we take and then responding back, following up with former clients to identify what outcome they had as far as going to court or getting a rent abatement or a deposit. So based on the call volume, that's what we estimate for these particular statistics.
Can you explain to me how that works? So someone would call and say, I didn't get my damage deposit back. And then you would put a specialist on the phone that would explain to them their rights and how to do so and direct them to do so, but you don't actually go to court with them.
Correct. For the most part, our service is direct legal advice and information over the phone. We do take some minimal representation, but for the most part, it's advising folks who don't have other resources to identify how to tackle this. We also have form letters, and we do draft and review leases, and we also draft letters on behalf of clients. A lot of tenant-landlord law can get solved outside of the courts, and that's what our aim is to give the renters the tools they need to address those issues.
So you have like sample letters that you can get them
on our website.
That's great. Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on. So again, an important bit of information for us in Reg Services as well as Homeline is that we understand who's calling Homeline and specifically geographic as well as economic data. And so as you can see here, the vast majority of folks calling into Homeline self-identify as being extremely low income, and which is an important information for us as we make sure that the data is or the service is accessible to that broad range of tenants. The thing about, excuse me, go ahead.
How do people find Homeline? And is there something posted? And I'm just trying to make a connection to tenant advocacy work and giving tenants tools to be able to figure out where to go. How do people find them? And then also, do they ask very specific questions about what their level of income is?
Again,
In each intake call, is there a sheet that's filled out, or
Chair
how do we
Goodman,
know this?
I would like to defer to the Homeline representative.
Can we jump back a couple slides? There is a referral slide page. There you go. So when we expanded to Minneapolis last April, we did a lot of coordination, as you can see, with 311, Reg Services, also Legal Aid, Volunteer Lawyers Network, the Attorney General, and also Student Legal Services at the U. The bulk of we track how people are referred to us, and I don't have all the specifics as far as the top referrals in Minneapolis, but I know the city, 311, the Attorney General's office is high up there. We also are partnering with Reg Services. We have these little cards in English, Spanish, and Somali that inspectors will hand out. So those are some of the referral sources. And then we do really minimal intake. That's what the goal of our tenant hotline is. We respond to people pretty much immediately. If we don't answer the phone, we get back to them within the day. And our intake is really minimal. We ask just a few questions, which is basically the data that you're going to get here. We ask them what their household income level is. We don't follow up on to confirm that, but for the most part, we report that data, and as that shows, it's primarily low-income residents. We also ask what race or ethnicity they are, how many people are in their household. So we have some basic information about that. We ask how they refer to us, and then we categorize what the issue that they're calling about. We have about 50 categories, and one of the last slides will show you kind of what the top issues are.
Okay, so let me just ask another. I'm sorry, this is out of interest. How do you define very or extremely low? I would love to see that in the way we would define people of low income. Is it 30% of the metro-wide? I mean, I would love to see the way it would be reported to us, the way we understand it in funding affordable housing. So people at or below 30% of the metro-wide median, 30 to 50%, 50 to 60, 60 to market rate or over market rate. Yep. And I'm wondering too, do you take calls from public housing residents? And do you categorize those separately? And do you have any area of expertise in helping people work through their problems with public housing? Okay,
I'll start at the beginning. The first question. It's the HUD income limits for the metro area. So every year HUD publishes that. So that's the low, very low, extremely low. That's how we categorize those.
So what is the income limit for extremely low?
So how many people in your household?
One.
18,200.
So Andrea, that would be even 30%. Okay, so maybe in the future, we could coordinate with our housing folks to just tell us. So we hear the number and the number that we're used to hearing it as it's a percentage of metro-wide median. Okay. No fault of yours, you wouldn't be doing it in the way we're used to hearing it, but it might make sense in the future. Low, extremely low, very low, that's all low to me. So I just want to get a sense of how low it is. And then on the public housing question?
The public housing question, yes, we have one attorney who specializes in subsidized housing law. However, as you saw in the referral slide, we interact and work alongside Legal Aid, the Volunteer Lawyers Network, all the time. We refer a lot of those residents there because Legal Aid does have income limits. We have any renter that calls us will advise them, but since Legal Aid does focus on low-income families, they will often be able to get direct representation depending on the issue. So we do have the expertise, but in a lot of cases, we'll refer to Legal Aid or Volunteer Lawyers Network.
Okay. Thank you.
So I think again, continuing on the data, and again, as I mentioned, we do collect a variety of data sources with Homeline. This is just an example of where we do collect information by ward, and Eric does have information available by ward if you're interested, and Homeline also makes an effort to provide that data to council members routinely. And then finally, as sort of a summary, and I will defer to Eric, Chair Goodman, members of the committee, to talk about why, or the main reasons they're cataloging for people calling in and the services that we're providing advice on.
I'd love to hear more about that.
Sure. So again, unfortunately, if you were having this meeting a week later, we would have the three quarters. So this is just the first half. But you can see these are some of the trends, the issues that folks call about. And I do have, as Kelly mentioned, for the first 6 months by ward for each of your wards I can hand out to you. And these talk about some of the unique trends compared to the rest of Minnesota, because we do serve the entire state and Minneapolis. What are some of the issues that we're hearing more of? I'll tell you one that we hear more about Minneapolis-wide is notices to vacate. I think that is a product of the rental market right now. It's a landlord's market, and so if they are on a whim, a landlord can say, we're going to non-renew your lease and take somebody else. So we're seeing a lot of those in Minneapolis.
Any other comments? I find this just absolutely fascinating. So that's why I'm asking so many questions.
Yeah, I mean, some of the additional work we're working on is we've been partnering with a lot of neighborhood associations on identifying what some of the issues are in their neighborhoods and then targeting kind of trainings and stuff. So unfortunately, infestations and bed bugs is one that's higher up just in the past 5 years or so, but in Minneapolis it's high up. So we partnered with some neighborhood groups to do some trainings on bed bug issues. And actually tonight in Northeast, we are partnering with a variety of Northeast neighborhoods on a tenant clinic that's from 6 to 8 at Edison High School. So we'll be talking to folks there as well.
Other questions or comments? Councilmember Cano?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm a renter myself, and I've actually used the services of Homeline, so I'm very happy that you're here today, and I'm very happy to hear about all the work that you're doing. I was glad to hear that the mayor recommended, a budgetary note to continue this important work. Our city is well half over renters that live here and that help Minneapolis become a thriving place. So I just want to commend you for all your efforts. I know that you've been to many meetings that I've been to with renters, Spanish speakers, immigrant families, people who really need that support to be able to navigate a very complicated system where sometimes people are in vulnerable positions where they get taken advantage of or don't fully understand their lease or maybe can't even read it. So, not to a fault of their own, of course, but just because we live in a multilingual society. So I just wanted to acknowledge and applaud your work at that. And I'm really appreciative of it. I know that you help me do better work as a council member. And I want to thank the city staff for also working with this organization to advance the voice of renters in our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Further comments or questions? Councilmember Quincy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first of all support what Councilmember Cano was saying. I'm particularly pleased that this relationship is going to be able to continue. It's really important. I'm impressed by the fact that this serves the entire city. It doesn't matter where people are calling from. They have issues. They know they have a go-to stop. I also wanted to point out the connection between our various departments and how we're going to expand on Councilmember Goodman's earlier question about how do they get referrals. I mean, this is coming from reg services and health inspectors. When they're out there talking to people who are experiencing it, it's terrific to be able to, as a city service, provide you with another contact point. It's the lowest cost way we can do that. Otherwise, we'd have to have our own department to do this, and we wouldn't be able to do it at this cost structure. I had a question on the 10th item for the reason to call, the reasons, is rental license. Can you explain what that means?
I can, and actually I have some new information about that I maybe would like to share with the members. That's basically if somebody is calling us about, usually in those cases it's they don't think that their landlord has a rental license with the city, or they're asking us about it, or we'll be on the phone with them about another issue, and we'll look up the property and we'll find out that they don't have a rental license. So. There's unique legalities involved there in terms of, what rights the tenant has and what the landlord has to do. And to mention the new information we have been working with regulatory services, getting a list of rental licenses and doing a cross-reference with calls for this first half of 2015 And the first ward we did, just in order, was Ward 1, but we're going to do it for every ward. We found that 9.2% of the callers that we advised in the first half of 2015 were calling from properties that didn't have rental licenses.
Right.
So, I mean, that's a considerable, I'm not sure what that's going to be citywide, but that's definitely a kind of public policy issue that is concerning. And we want to help the tenants in those situations.
That's what exactly what I was hoping the answer would be, because we'd like to have people have rental licenses. We can do proper inspections, so we can make sure people are in residences that meet our standards. Also, at the top of the list is on repairs. It's terrific when we're having code compliance kind of matching this. We want to make sure we're having our housing stock be suitable for living instead of being people taken advantage of. So this is terrific. Thank you.
I just have a question for Kelly. So in the very first line of the report, it says that we, in 2015, allocated $100,000 to Homeline to provide legal assistance. And then later on, it says the hotline is $150,000 in Minneapolis. So what is the total amount the city is providing for operations of the services we get?
100,000. We in conversing, Councilmember Good and members of the committee, in conversing and talking with Homeline just about their overall budget and budget needs, we thought it was important just to point out the fact that the city graciously provides 100,000, but our need is greater in terms of what the services provide, and Homeline does supplement with state grant financing and other grants to provide service to the citizens of Minneapolis. And
I appreciate that explanation. From where I sit, it sounds like an extremely good use of $100,000. And in fact, I was trying to calculate how many calls they had compared to how much money that we contribute to this effort, and it's about $40 a call. It's just really insignificant for the good advice that they're providing. So it seems like in terms of outcomes, we get really good bang for our buck, and that's what we're trying to figure out is, can we work with nonprofits and partners who do this work on a regular basis to get a really good outcome at a very manageable cost? And it sounds like we really do here.
Chair Goodman, members of the committee, I would agree. We've had a great partnership with Homeline, and as Eric indicated, we're able to now look and align resources and places where the data and what their services are providing can help us do a better job at regulating properties in the city. So,
are there further comments or questions? I want to thank you. Oh, yes. Councilmember Fry, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just briefly, first off, I'm very pleasantly surprised at the level of detail that you have here. It really provides a nice view into all the work that you guys are doing. In terms of how the calls are ultimately coming your way, you mentioned VLN, legal aid, and as well as 311. Are the calls being, do you coordinate to give the calls directly to VLN or legal aid, or are they giving them to you? One, and then two, how often are our 311 folks directing them directly to you guys?
I don't have that information, but it's easy. That's one question we ask everybody is who referred you, so I can tell you by across the city and in your ward, what the top referral services are. When we started in Minneapolis, we met with 311 and all those other groups, and there's 311 developed kind of a flow chart of what issues they refer to us, what issues they might refer to legal aid or VLN, and we use that same flow chart. Kind of depending on what the issue is, legal aid has income limits, and they generally will represent folks like who are facing eviction or have like emergency repairs, whereas we'll help those folks too, but they might get more in-depth support and possible representation if they go to legal aid. We'll answer their questions also, but we'll also answer questions about anything else, renters credit, privacy issues, those types of things. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, thank you.
Further comments or questions? Well, I really appreciate the mid-year status report. It's proof that if you pay attention and we have some reporting, you'll find out some really good information. I think it was a really good use of time, and I really appreciate you being here today to provide the report. I'm going to move to receive and file the mid-year status report on Homeline services, noting that a majority, if not all, members of the council hearing this report thought that this was an excellent way to use $100,000 of the city's limited budget. On the motion to receive and file, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is approved. Seeing no further business before us, we are adjourned.